Hash Hush and Circle Up.
Welcome to On, the Hash House Harrier podcast for interviews, history, and stories. I'm your host, Ra.
Today on the podcast, we're doing something a little special. We're going to talk about a charity event in Memphis. But first, let's meet the key person. Put it in my mouth. Welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me on. Pleasure to be
Great.
on.
Let's introduce you to everybody before we talk about what you're up to in Memphis.
Sure. I am put it in my mouth. Memphis is my mother kennel. Towards the end of last year, moved out to the Raleigh, North Carolina area. So now I'm hashing with Sir Walter's Hash House Harriers.
How and when did you get to your first hash?
It was shortly after I moved to Memphis. I was just trying to meet people. I had never heard of hashing in New Jersey where I grew up. Met some people. She brought me out to my first hash. I didn't really know what I was getting myself into, like many virgins, and then fell in love with it right out of the gate. It was a lot of fun. I ended up serving on the mismanagement team in Memphis for 4 out of the 5 years that I lived there, including RAing for 3 years. It's a blast. It's connected me with so many cool people and definitely helped me age in reverse a little bit. Certainly feel younger after joining the hash squad.
Who were some of the people that were there when you joined the hash? Who were some of the kind of formative people in the hash that you immediately connected with?
Our RA at the time, he's what I learned all my RAing techniques from. His name is One-Eyed Wetter. Does a lot of great travel hashing, recruiting tons of visitors to come to the big Memphis hash events. And then our GM at the time was Runs and Dry. He's been running the show for quite a while there. Great group of people out there. Memphis had an awesome blend of some really fast runners, some walkers, everywhere in between. It was a heavy drinking kennel. It was a good song kennel. It was just a very, very diverse group of hashers out there. It was how I got into hashing, got into running, and met a ton of friends shortly after moving there.
How did you get your hash name?
My naming was pretty straightforward. Prior to hashing, I had a pretty goody two-shoes upbringing, didn't do a lot of crazy stuff. So I didn't have many embarrassing stories to tell. And it's funny, when they actually sent me away after my questioning, they asked my wife, I said, tell him, what did he not say? Tell me all the stories. She's like, no, that's about it. Just so happened to be a competitive eater and good at putting things in my mouth on a regular basis. Our RA came up with that name and it's stuck and it's great. And it's mouth for short. It's a really good name and always sparks a good story to tell fellow hashers as well.
What about your travel hashing? Where else did you hash while you were still living in Memphis?
Not too many places, actually. I've been doing more travel hashing ever since moving out here. The only other place I travel hashed to while living in Memphis was Little Rock. That's a kennel with quite a rich history. It was cool to meet some of the Little Rock hashers. We had a lot of visitors come from Big Hump in St. Louis. We had Rocket City come to invade us a bunch of times. So it was a nice kind of central location to that part of the country. Really good as far as going around and having some visitors come to us as well.
And then we'll just check in with Raleigh. What was it like changing to a new club?
Different, having not a lot of travel experience in Memphis. I had heard of every kennel's got their own traditions, does things a little bit differently. And indeed, that was the case. Out here in Raleigh, the hash kennels are less into the running, way more shiggy. So that's been a little bit of a change of pace for me, but it's still a pretty cool group of people to have some fun with. One thing that I like about hashing out here is it's not just that there's one city around. So there's Raleigh, Durham, there's 2 cities, but we get a lot of travelers from Triad Krispy Kremers and Trash quite frequently. So there's a lot more visitors on a regular basis, as well as some of the Raleigh hashers going to the surrounding kennels to visiting. That's been pretty cool to get exposure to a bunch of different people from a bunch of different places.
What we're really here today to talk about is the Donuts and Dogs 5-milers. A lot of people have heard of the beer mile. I don't know if they've heard of the donut 5-miler.
Sure. So very similar in terms of hashing in the beer mile, as in you're going to be punishing your legs as well as your stomach with this type of event. This was actually inspired by, I'll call it an official charity run right out here in Raleigh. UNC, their student association, puts on something called the Krispy Kreme Challenge, where you run 2.5 miles, eat a dozen Krispy Kreme glazed donuts, and then run 2.5 miles back to the starting line. Considering I'm a retired competitive eater and into running and all this, I was like, wow, this is right up my alley. This sounds like a lot of fun. I didn't want to fly all the way out to Raleigh just to do this event. So I decided to recreate it with just myself and a couple friends back in Memphis. And this was 2018. It was just a bunch of us getting together, having fun. We bought our own donuts. That was a blast. And then the next year, I invited some more friends out to it, and the event grew a little bit. But that second year in 2019, is where it really started to turn the corner and become a little bit more than just a bunch of friends messing around and having fun. So one of our hasher friends knew a regional Krispy Kreme manager who decided, I'll donate the donuts and provide it for you guys. It's like, wow, that was really awesome. I had already collected everyone's money to buy the donuts at that time. But during the week, there's a local running store that hosts a weekday 3-4 mile run, and they give beer to all the runners afterwards. And I was like, all right, well, how about we just take all this money we took for the donuts and just donate it to that running store? He keeps giving back to the community. So everyone was down for that. We did that a couple of years, and then we ended up squeezing our last, I'll call it small scale one, in 2020, a couple weeks before the pandemic came around, put a damper on it. For 2021, it was just a couple of us really low key getting together outside before we knew when the world was going to open back up a little bit. The event really took a turn in 2022 and just really blew up and took on different shapes. At a slider eating contest in 2018, I met a buddy in Memphis who hates running, but runs the St. Jude Marathon every year and is just a fundraising guru. This guy's ex-military, has a lot of great connections, awesome attitude, and a ton of energy. So I partnered up with him to really take this charity event to the next level. And he ended up being close with a local dog shelter, Street Dog Foundation, that helps to take care of and rehome dogs that need a home. We chose them as the beneficiary for the run in 2022, and it blew up. We ended up getting close with a local brewery that hosted us, allowed us to use their event space to host the run, and ended up being a great place to hang out afterwards because, all right, great, you did your run. Now let's enjoy some nice beers on a nice day. So in 2022, this event grew from grassroots, just a couple friends getting together and being silly and having fun, to a really impactful community event. We ended up raising almost $2,000 last year for Street Dog Foundation. We got 2 dogs found their forever home. So this grew from literally just something fun into something really incredible. So yeah, we're looking to keep the momentum going and blow it out of the water in 2023.
Cool. How many people did the event last time?
We had about 80 to 85 runners last time. I want this event to be inclusive, not necessarily competitive. So the official Krispy Kreme challenge is to do the 2.5 miles, dozen donuts, 2.5 miles in under an hour. That's not exactly easy, especially if you're not into donuts or not a super fast runner. So I made sure that the registration could include spectators, or if you want to just get 6 donuts or 3 donuts, I just want everyone to come and have a good time for it. We had about 80, 85 runners last year, and it was pretty awesome. We obviously generated a good enough amount of business for the brewery too, that they were happy to host us again this year too.
That's excellent. I'm not going to tell you how to do it. We're just going to talk about this event, but I know there's people going to say, hey, why don't we add coffee or beer and make it a triathlon? Maybe one year you can look at that.
And I'm not going to say no. Hey, anyone who wants to incorporate some coffee, or even better, even some beer into this, more than welcome to it. I know there were quite a handful of people last year who enjoyed more than one frosty cold one after the race.
How long is the time limit? You mentioned the goal is an hour. How long does it actually last?
There's not a firm time limit. I try to include all different running paces in this. I'd say generally by an hour and 30, hour and 45, everyone's about done and wrapping up the race at that point.
So it's 5-mile ground covered with the donuts in the middle. What about people who want to support you who can't be there, or just can't make it that day, or can't run, or don't want to eat donuts?
Good questions. We actually got support from one of my YouTube subscribers who watches my competitive eating channel, lives in Australia, and he bought registrations, he bought tickets and merch last year, and I just ended up mailing it to him. So we definitely got some support, which has been pretty awesome. There are options to register as a spectator. If you just want to hang out and eat donuts, you could buy stickers as well, or you can just make a donation direct to Street Dog Foundation. And I can provide the ticket links and the registration links to you after we're done here.
Okay, we'll do that. And we'll include a visual of the poster. This will be a video podcast we'll try to get out real quick. And then we'll just add, I'll put it on Facebook and Half Mind and the podcast website. And just ask anyone else who wants to share it. They can put that poster in their own invitation to it.
Super. That's much appreciated.
Before we go, let's just talk about competitive eating a little bit. How did you get involved in competitive eating?
That's pretty wild. That hobby really got some traction going right around the same time as I started hashing. I started dabbling with it a little bit when I was still in New Jersey. There was a pub near where I used to work, and they had like 3-pound burger challenge. And I'm like, all right, I'm pretty active. I got a pretty ferocious appetite. So I just went there with a couple friends after work and did that one day, and didn't really know what I was doing. Was not trained or practiced or anything with that. I showed up, I did the challenge, and I felt physically terrible. I was really full, but mentally it felt amazing. It was a lot of fun. So a couple months went by, and then my friend tagged me in another challenge nearby. And so I did one, and I won that one as well. And after 2 or 3 of these, I was like, all right, I guess this is a hobby of mine. After I moved into Memphis, I got connected with the hashers, got connected with the local restaurant community, and ended up signing a contract with Major League Eating. It took off from there. For about 4 years, I was a semi-professional competitive eater. And you can see behind me there, I made my retirement last July 4th after competing at the Nathan's hot dog contest at Coney Island on ESPN for the first time. And I was like, you know what? I'm not ever going to get to a bigger stage than this. I've been doing this hobby for a while, and it does take a toll on your body, understandably. So that was my last contest, and I retired after doing that for about 5 years. But between hashing and competitive eating, it was a great kind of overlap of similar skill sets and sense of adventure. Anyone to get into one of those two hobbies has got to be a little bit weird, a little bit adventurous. So there's been a lot of overlap there, and both of them helped me thrive and dip into two pots at the same time. So that was pretty awesome.
That's fascinating. I know you said you went to the hash, you didn't know what it was about. What does somebody who's never done any competitive eating, what would they be surprised to find out about the activity?
Probably how close it is to being a sport, especially with the training. It's very similar to going on a long run or weightlifting, where you're training, you're putting healthy food, liquids in your body, and when you get full enough and you think you've reached the edge, no, you got to push a little bit harder, and that's how you get better. And as I was getting better at running, I was getting better at eating at the same time, and I was really on the up. And both of them fueled my competitive mindset. But I knew I was never going to be the next Joey Chestnut. So both between hashing and eating, I was competitive, but I was also, hey, it's a fun activity. That's really all it is. You have fun, meet some cool people, and have a good time doing it. Do both. You meet some cool people. I've got craft space all over the country with hashers, eaters, very much of a similar style of activities that really caused me to awaken things that I never thought were possible. I didn't get into eating or hashing for those reasons, but I came out of this. And I now know I self-taught how to edit videos, and I would not have been doing this fundraiser if it wasn't for that either. So I got into philanthropy, video editing, and promoting the restaurant community. And it's given me way more than I ever would have bargained for. So I'm super grateful for that.
That's fantastic. I think the world's going to be grateful for what you're doing here. The Donuts and Dogs 5 miler. It is April 23rd in Memphis, Tennessee. We'll put the poster up. And if people want to click on something while they're listening, what do they go?
There is a event page for that. There's the Ticket Leap sign up website, but pretty much all updates can be found on that Facebook event page. That's the primary communication tool. We're doing that. Each registration includes a t-shirt. We've got stickers for sales. Any support is hugely appreciated, and Street Dog really benefits a lot from this. So I appreciate you having me on, give me a little bit of a platform to promote this.
Okay, we'll put this out on podcast and put it on Facebook and all the groups I have, and I'm sure it'll help spread. Good luck with it. Great talking to you today.
Awesome. Thanks so much. On.
This is the On podcast. Hasher stories, hasher voices, hasher history. New episodes every week. Until next time, On. This is Ra. To close the circle, here's the Hash anthem sung by Mother Hash.
Swing